Hey, let's get into it. There are times when we feel like something's missing, something we want, something we expected, maybe something that we just thought we would have by now. And when that gap kind of stays open, it doesn't just sit quietly. It starts to shape who we are and how we respond to others around us. The frustration it builds, the tension increases, and sometimes even in ways we fully don't notice. And James wants to press into that here. James 4, 2 to 3. You desire and you do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. And you ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. James lays out this progression. It says you desire, but you don't have it, so you murder. It's pretty strong language. I mean, he's not necessarily describing literal action, but the intensity of what that desire can become if that desire is left unchecked. And he continues. Um, you covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and you quarrel, and the movement is kind of clear. The desire into frustration, which then leads to conflict. And what begins internally, um, it doesn't stay contained. James adds something unexpected. You don't have because you don't ask, which then shifts the direction here. Not everything is meant to be forced or taken or secured through our actions. Some things are meant to be brought before God. And yet, even that can become misaligned. You don't ask, or you ask and you don't receive because you ask wrongly. Not because asking is wrong, because our motivation, it matters. James says the issue is to spend it on our passions. In other words, desire hasn't been reoriented, it's just been redirected. And that's where James wants to be both kind of helpful and honest with us here. The desire isn't the problem, but when the desire becomes central, it starts to drive everything. It distorts our relationships, and that desire distorts our prayer. We've seen this before in the wilderness where Israel desires the provision, the food, the water, and it turns into complaint. In David's life, a desire, it's not checked, and it leads to decisions, and those decisions ripple outwards with Bathsheba. James is helping us to recognize something early, before it grows and before it spills over, before it begins shaping everything else in our lives. Um, Check the desire. And so, what desire in you feels strongest in your life right now? Maybe it's not something small. Maybe it's something that's beginning to press. How is it shaping your reactions? How is it shaping your expectations, your relationships? What is that desire spilling into? Maybe even in your prayer life. Is that desire beginning to distort what you're asking for and how you're asking for it and how you're maybe even demanding it? And what would it look like to take it honestly before God and not just asking for it, but allowing Him to perhaps even reshape the request? Not every desire needs to be removed, but every desire needs to be rightly ordered, brought before God, humbly submitting that desire and saying, hey, is this something that I should be requesting? Is this something that I should be chasing and pursuing? Uh, Not just bringing our requests, but even bringing those desires to God. Wherever you find yourself, God goes with you today.